Right, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for those who have actually come into the building. I think this is the first time we've had a face-to-face meeting for about 5 years. Sorry, Nikki. Sorry. I think it's about the first time we've had a face-to-face meeting for about 5 years. So thank you for those who have been able to come in, and welcome to those who are online. We've got quite a busy agenda, but firstly we have got some apologies.
Good morning. Yes, we have apologies from Nerys Humphreys, Phil Sherwood and Steve Jump, and we're also joined by some colleagues online.
Thank you. The minutes from the last meetings, we'll just go page by page, and if anyone wants to point out anything that's factually incorrect, please state so. So on your pack is page 7. Nothing. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. 11. Page 12, and there was no action, so I can see from that one everything resolved in the meeting. Right, moving on, we are... Any declarations of interest to begin with? No. Revenue turnout, a report. Al, Amanda, is that... One of you leading on that?
So do you want to press the button? And point it towards you.
Is that better? Hopefully everyone can hear me and see the screen. We're starting with the revenue outturn report for 24-25. Once again, I assume everybody's had a chance to read the report. The key finding is that the outturn position was a net overspend of 18.4 million, which is focused mainly on the high needs block budget. Together with the brought forward deficit balance from the previous year of 20.2, with a little bit of offset from the safety valve, we've got a cumulative deficit at the end of 24-25 at £36.9 million. Within the body of the report, we've got some detail on slight variances. If I show you the summary outturn position, schools block pretty on budget, a slight variation there in the dedelegation. As I said before, high needs block was the biggest area of overspend against our budget. There was a slight variance where the figure moved towards the end of the year. Early years was a increase in the clawback from the DFE on that calculation, and the central school services block was a little change in the capita contract. So those are the key changes for our outturn. Does anybody have any questions, comments? No?
Thank you.
Okay.
Moving on then to the maintain school.
Yes, just move on to that. Just through all that. Yes, the maintain school balances, this kind of falls out of the year-end position. Once again, hopefully you've had a chance to look through the report and the details in that. The table, the summary table in section 4 there just shows the position that moved from the beginning of 24-25 to the end. Once we've factored in the academisations in year where the revenue balances have transferred to the academies, we're left with a little bit with some in-year movement on our maintained schools, which gave us an outturn revenue balance of 1.3 million. What we're seeing is falling revenue surpluses, and in some cases schools are moving into deficit positions, which you can see the in-year movement there. That our primary schools saw a 1.3 drop in their balances. This is something that we've got a section there on what we're doing about this. We've got a deficit recovery programme in place with our maintained schools, which we currently have about 9 schools on that programme. As part of this, we ask for a suite of information from schools where we look at various things such as number on roll against PAN. We look at their mix of SEND children, because these seem to be the key drivers of deficits for our maintained schools. I think we're all aware of the demographics and the pressures in the SEND budget. As part of our deficit recovery programme, we're engaging with the DFE, who have the SRMA programme. We love an acronym, so Schools Resource Management Advisors. We found these to be really useful because their access to lots of benchmarking data and their experience of other schools in similar difficulties means that the advice that they can give is really valuable. We've had one school get to a final report stage. We've got a couple of schools, 3 schools that are at a draft stage with that. We've just commissioned another 2, and then we're in discussions with another 2 settings about starting this process. Again, we found it to be a really quick turnaround, so it's quite a timely process. And we do sort of strongly encourage our schools who are in deficit or even forecasting deficit over the next year or so in their longer term plans to think about engaging with that. So it is something that's moving up the agenda within the council, and quite a lot of work going on to manage that position. Okay. Are there any questions, comments?
We have got an item regarding the financing, scheme for financing schools, which we'll go into more detail about, won't we, in the meeting?
We do have that on the agenda as well. For
yes, on the agenda, yep. So we can go into a bit more detail, which would be great. Yep. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? No, thank you.
Okay, I shall move on.
Review monitoring.
Yeah, still me again. The revenue monitoring report for 25-26. Again, it's just an update of where we are at the end of May in terms of doing the figures for this. We're broadly aligned with our original budget position. The only real change is in the high needs block, where we originally were forecasting an outturn of 24.5 million as an in-year deficit. That's come in a little bit to 21.7 million because following the outturn position, and we saw some changes in provision there, and there was a more kind of favourable movement that allowed us to then scope our forecast for this year. I think that's
yeah. I mean, essentially, it's a good and a bad news story. It's 21.7 million is still obviously a huge amount of money, but it's encouraging to see that we are under budget, as previously, you know, we've always been sort of chasing the budget figure. As Angela said, the improved outturn from 24-25 reduced the cost base, so we're seeing that in subsequent years, and we've also tweaked down the growth rate based on what we saw from the latter part of 24-25. So it's encouraging from that aspect that, you know, although it's growing, it's slowing, I think is the sort of trademark at the moment, but still very, very big numbers that we're adding to the cumulative deficit at the NA.
Ming.
It's just like an internal high deficit with collaboration with the school leaders. We have many initiatives under Safety World. Now we will turn it into our business as usual delivery to improve SEND effectiveness and efficiency. Last month, as you can see, the latest figure from DFE indicate nationally the increase of EHCP. That's always the indicator of the cost increase. It's still rapid, huge increase. Now nationally is 5.5% of children and young people are having EHCP. In Southeast, in our neighboring authority, that's about 5.5%. Like I just said, in Wokingham, it still increased, but we managed to slow it down a little bit. Now our figures stand at 4.5% against national 5.3 and the regional 5.5. Yeah, there's some green shoot there. Our job did not go out to just to manage the EHCP, but one of the key reasons for deficit is we have a high number of EHCP, and it's increased in the past few years. Now the trend slowed down a bit in Wokingham, so that's the positive things. The impact of collaboration in the education system. I would like to add that.
Thank you. Can I just ask, there's not been a significant improvement. There's been some, but the EHCPs seem to be the issue that you're saying. The past 2 years, EHCPs is what's driven it up. So how are you budgeting for next year, knowing what has happened the past 2 years? Because obviously we haven't taken that into account, the numbers of EHCPs, correctly.
Are you referring to how do we budget for the growth in EHCPs?
Yeah.
Yes, so we look at the historical trends, they play a big part, and we're sort of using rolling averages, if you like. So, for example, at the end of last year, 24-25, we could see that the growth rate for the last sort of 4 or 5 months was much lower. So we factor that into our forecast. Using the average prices as well, we've got to, adjust for the increases in inflation. And that's why we've seen a decrease in our forecast against our budget. It's because we're tweaking those growth rates in light of what we're seeing over that sort of rolling average. So it's fairly dynamic, it's quite cyclical as well. In the lead up to September, the growth rate does tend to spike and then sort of subsides again. So it's taking those factors into account as well.
So how confident are you about your predictions for next year?
For next year, I think we'll have to redo the budget in light of the outturn that we've seen. So the forecast is something that I have more confidence in than the budget that we set, say, back in October. But we'll be doing budget setting again post-summer. So I'm sure the budget that we set last year will be revised in light of the outturn that we've been experiencing. So more confidence in the forecast than the budget because it's so dynamic. Yeah, things are just moving so quickly.
Okay. Yes, David.
Can I just ask, has money been factored in linked to the banding review? Because obviously with the banding review, there might be some more money going into mainstream sector to support those pupils that have been rebanded. So has there been money put aside to support that? Because that was always put together as not a cost-saving exercise, the banding review. So has additional money in the budget been put aside to cover that increase in costs for the mainstream sector?
So in the budget, no. So when we did the budget setting back in October, we didn't have that information to hand. We were still going through the process of the task and finish group. However, in the forecast, indeed, we've tried to incorporate that. Yeah, mainstream, we're expecting to see an uplift in the cost base. Special there's some mitigations in place to freeze that, so it doesn't affect this year's budget. But then from next year onwards, we're trying to incorporate the impacts that we see from the modelling. Yeah. Yeah.
So from what you said there, it seemed like you were freezing the special school costs for a year, but then it was going to drop. Is that what you're saying?
Based on the modelling, we expect the cost base to reduce.
So how do you see that with the special schools growing? How are you freezing costs for special schools, but the need for places growing in special schools? How is that being balanced by the finances?
Oh, I see. So we're looking at the average. So I'm not used to the rest of the budget. So we tend to look at it at unit cost. So therefore, if we get an increase in actual places, the cost base will increase. But looking at the average unit cost, we're factoring in those sort of reductions there.
So are you saying that the average unit cost for a child in special school you're thinking will go down?
For a certain proportion. Sorry. For a certain proportion, based on the implementation phase that we've got, so we've over the next 2 or 3 years, we've got a certain amount of EHCPs within those sectors going through the new iMosphere tool. So we're trying to account for those EHCPs, the impact on the unit cost there, as well as factoring in that there will be increases for new places coming into the system.
I think I understand that, but I think as long as that's taken into account as we move forward in the implementation board and things that are meeting, I think it's really important that the special schools costs aren't going down.
No, I can confirm, yeah, that's been modelled based on the implementation plan, how many HCPs are going through the system, the impact that will have on the average unit cost as we've modelled as per the sampling, that has been incorporated into the budget for 26, 27 and the forecast as well.
Can I just ask, talking about special school places and the costs and the forecasting, are we talking about the INMUS special school places? Are we talking about the maintained special school places?
Maintained special school places. With regard to INMUS, we try and suppress the inflation or the price rises they try and incorporate every year. We've got savings incorporated for suppressing that inflation. But what I was referring to earlier was in relation to maintained special schools, so the Addingtons, the Chiltern Ways, the Oak Trees.
Thank you, David London, for bringing that up. I think it's a good point. Oh, Shirley, yep. Who we got?
I just want to add one other actual information we haven't revealed here. When we carry out banding review, I think special school have representative there. We also benchmark nationally. When we decide each band, we really take into account in working traditionally, probably we mainly, I think, paying funding into special school more than mainstream school. But in the new banding, we want to make sure each band will give school, doesn't matter special school or maintained school, higher funding than national average. So you see each banding, band 2, band 3, band 4, for each banding, we give more money than the other local area. That may be different. When you said less money, David, when you said less money, probably maybe less money than currently we have, but will be more than the same banding, using the same tool across the country, our school going to have. That's the thing we really emphasizing. We want our school to get more than other area. I just would like to point out, when you said less or not, probably less than what you currently have, but it will be more than what other areas have in the same banding, in the same need. With the same need, okay.
Shirley.
It's just a clarity, really. Do we foresee then that with the students that are going currently into the independent sector and not into the kind of maintained special schools will be reduced? Because actually, if we look at the banding, some of them are not going to accept the students with what they have now and the new banding. So are we foreseeing in the next 2-3 years that we will need more places, because then we're not going to be able to afford to actually send them to those independent specialist schools?
More places in maintained specials. We've obviously forecast the 2 new special schools. That's a bit further down the road. That's incorporated into our long-term budget and forecasting. But can you repeat your,
So have you mitigated that in the next 2 to 3 years? So before that comes into pass, there's going to be a shortage of places, isn't there? So those children are still going to have to remain in rather expensive independent sector. So is that budgeted in still for those children to stay in those schools and for more to potentially go in there? Because it's almost above the banding, isn't it, with what some of them are being paid? So is that in the forecast? Because there won't be enough places in our specialist schools for these, even if we all were to put an inclusion unit or a specialist unit hub in place, there's not going to be enough spaces in the next 2 to 3 years until the 2 special schools are ready? With the delay, because they're delayed, aren't they? We were hoping they'd be earlier.
Yeah, we're well aware based on the sort of sufficiently forecast and planning that the capacity doesn't match the need. So unfortunately, you know, we do see an increase in INMIS until we've got that capacity in the system. So that's in the budget and in our forecasts, and that's why INMIS is a huge expenditure item in our cost base. It accounts for a third of our cost base, but in terms of the actual population of EHCPs, I think it's 7 or 8%. So a huge disparity there, but it's in the forecasts.
So then, hopefully, with the banding, some of that can be mitigated, because if the schools like myself actually can take a child in and then outsource some provision, it may well be cheaper than those. So that might be how we have to look at mitigating it, but actually it's looking at the banding and making sure the banding is meeting the actual needs of the schools to support them, because actually ultimately giving a school more might reduce the amount, that 8%. If we could get that 8% down to 4% going forward, that would make a massive difference to our budget, wouldn't it? Across, we would all have more money in our schools if we did that. Okay. You don't need to answer, I'm clear.
Well, just one more thing to add. I mean, aligning the provision to the need ensures that we've got the most cost-effective system. You look at all the data, other LAs, that is the biggest single most, the issue that has the most impact. So we're really hoping the banding review can help with that. And yeah, it should become a win-win in terms of, yeah, suppressing in this, if not reducing it. We are forecasting, and it's quite a long-term plan, but once we've got that capacity right, we're linking provision with need, then in this will decline quite substantially. Yeah.
Can I just add? Can I just repeat? I think you're absolutely right, Shirley. I think we want to broaden local provision. Doesn't matter mainstream school or special school. Also want to have equitable and fair system. Your child has same banding. Doesn't matter if they with a special school or mainstream school, they should get the same amount of money. That's not the case at the moment. So while we ask mainstream schools to be more inclusive, keep ESCB children, when they only get half the money special school have for same band as a child, that wouldn't work. So when we have finite pot of money, is for our system leader to work out how we can broaden our local opportunity for those young people. Of course, we want to go to appropriate place. We want to have economy of scale, right? Economy scale for special school to do that. So I just want to share with you, we set up another implementation board. So exactly what you're saying, I think we need to take the gradual process. We don't rush. I think what we learn from some other area, when they try to rush it, in the end they have to abandon it because it wouldn't work. So we also designed to report back to this group from that board. At the same time, your school, whatever, you have certain view and a new line of inquiry. We already, yesterday's meeting, we have 3 or 4 very good line of inquiry summary already cover the question David and actually you ask. But you have any new line inquiry through your representative. We have now 9 people from multi-academic trust, special school, mainstream school, secondary school. Let it know. They can take it to that board, and they in turn, probably later this year, we report back to this group.
Yeah, I just think, I was going to bring that up, I was going to add to that. Jules and some others within special schools have raised concerns, which I think is fair to share now. The concerns are around the banding, the impact on special schools, the fact that models of the banding that are going to affect schools weren't provided. So that was a big concern. And actually that's not just for special schools, that's for all schools. because then if you're trying to project and look at your budgets, it's very hard to make those adjustments and look at what's coming forward. The impact of the banding on children in Wokingham, because actually we could be in a position where we're taking schools from other areas. And also with the way it was voted within School Forum, whether the information was really all there for us to make a considered vote, and the inequality possibly around that voting, with the fact, I mean, just the way the School Forum membership is, mostly mainstream, less special schools, so the voting wasn't really provided on a equality base there. I think what we've got to consider here is the importance of special schools and also the AP units, well, I'm looking at Endeavour Foundry, how important they are for our sector, for our education, and we're going to make sure that they are funded sufficiently that the banding doesn't affect them. So I think as the School Forum, we're going to be listening to this implementation board, what's coming through. That needs also to be working quite closely with the high needs block to make sure that we're not in this position again where there is this risk for special schools and being able to provide the provision that they have been providing, which has been outstanding for schools over the years. So I think that's really important that we note that and that it is taken forward. So yeah, it's quite an important group that's formed, and I think they have to be working very closely with School Forum to give us the information needed so we can make the right decisions for all. Okay. Linda.
Just going back to the 7-8% who are in the INMUS, who are so expensive and are costing the borough so much money, it's highly likely that there will always be some that will be sent out of borough, and those who potentially could have been kept within borough at a school like Addington. We know that in comparison, our costs, our charges, our current tiers are much lower than those. So thinking about equity, we're just very concerned that when we are in comparison to these children that have been sent out and could have had their needs met in a local provision, that we're not penalised. Because when we very often hear the, again and again, the benchmarking that we're expensive, when we know what these INMUS schools are charging, and we see it in Tribunal, and we know what they're charging. So I just want to recognise that those that we could meet need for, we also want some equity, because these are high needs children. They're highly unlikely to have had their needs met within mainstream.
Thank you, Linda. Has the outer borough placements reduced over the last 2 years?
I can't say with 100% certainty, but no. Based on the information that I've seen of late, it's not reducing. But maybe that's something I can share because I don't have that information to hand. Yep. So yes, certainly can circulate the out of borough trend.
Yeah, that'd be good, I think, for us all to be aware of. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Al? No, thank you. Moving on to Scheme for Financial Schools. Is it Amanda or Al again? No.
Sorry, it's me again. Yes, Scheme for Financing Schools. This is the statutory document that all local authorities need to publish. We update it annually in line with guidance from the DFE, where they change the standard advice for us. The only change in this one is a small item which related to energy charges to a school's budget share, which is paragraph 8.3. So that's just been amended and highlighted in the appendix, which is the full scheme.
Have people had time to read through this scheme at all? Okay. Deborah and I now, pre-meet, had a quite long discussion with Al and Amanda regarding this, and just I think it'd be good to sort of clarify some points with the rest of the forum. We did discuss the amount of challenge that they can apply with maintained schools, thinking about academies and about how we have to be very strict with our budgets, especially with staffing, with the costs, and that's where most schools get into the deficit problems. What can the LA actually do? What influence can they have with a maintained school around staffing with the school is in significant deficit? Can you answer that?
Well, as part of our deficit recovery and the SRMA reports, we're seeing costed recommendations about staffing changes for maintained schools, and that is something that we will be asking schools to implement, and we'll be monitoring with our schools to recover those deficits.
Lovely. Mark.
I think it also, as well as that, the local authority are going to plan to work more closely with maintained schools. So one of the challenges that maintained schools face as opposed to academies is how can we share staff? So for example, in other local authorities, there's sort of greater use of federations or working partnerships, which again, academies have. So hopefully one of those things that could happen, it might be able to look at the budgets as a whole, the longer term impact there. So I think that would be something that is a real positive step that the local authority are sort of implementing, that sort of more collaborative working together to solve things as a group.
Me.
Yeah, possibly Mark already said what I said. Education landscape changed again a bit. You may remember for 5 years ago, there was a strong stride for maintained school to become academy by year 2030. In some region, they will even push for 3 years. I know one of the Southwest, they push very hard for that. So the other day, I catch up with a regional director. I think that changed now. Local authority need to pick up more. Instead of waiting for a school to become academy, you need to take action, proactive action. So we look at a certain model across the country, how maintained school actually can be better supported. Or when I say better support, I'm not blaming my predecessor or whatever. That's not what I mean. I mean, how can be supported well by local authority by supporting each other. So that's what Mark referred to, whether we can look at some model of working together. I think across the country, there are some in London, like a Camden Learning and Barnet Education Alignment, etc., but Hertfordshire for Learning, etc. They really collaborate through some kind of arrangement. So, two things we're doing. I think sometime next week we are going to look at budget deficit in the context of school causing concern. Here we call it a school at risk assessment meeting. So look at the key issues. There are some things school can do better. Well, like a finance colleague said, whether can have some better finance management arrangement in place. Some measure can be put in place. While very open school leader already tried quite a lot of things. They need some kind of peer support, peer challenge. So in that, I myself going to meet with our mainstream school later this term, or later this month, and then probably in September as well, to explore how we can work together to create economy of scale, to share some resources like Mark said, for example, some schools very small, they found it very difficult to get good business manager to support the finance. Whether we can, I'll give you hypothetical, give you some example, whether we can share a good, effective business manager across the board, because they are not belong to academy. So that's where local authority wants to step in, try to facilitate that kind of peer support, peer challenge as a group, possibly forming some kind of soft federation, like they're thinking, with the family of school idea, really. Apart from finance, due diligence, I think that's something we plan to do.
Next question for you then. Great that you got the support there, but where's the challenge and the rigour around the monitoring of the budgets? Like for academies, it's quarterly, so will that be in place for maintained schools where their budget is reviewed regularly, And then if there's big, hard decisions to be made, who's making them to improve these deficits?
I can talk about the budget monitoring. Where our schools are in deficit or forecasting a deficit, we ask for monthly monitoring. So we get that information in, and we're starting to see that for this year, which kind of informs where the trend is going. In terms of making schools take action, that's something that we encourage schools to do, and I think that's something that is the profile of how we manage that corporately. It's moving up the agenda.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? No. Right. Yes.
Thank you, Lucian. It was just a quick one, because obviously the deficit budgets are also linked to the falling roll. So just what work is being done with that? I know there's been a lot of work with falling rolls, but what else can be done to help schools with that piece of work?
Thank you, Lisa. That's a good question. That's the idea of family of school is really by linking up all those initiatives. In terms of falling role is the primary school school place planning strategy that's been progressed well through working on education partnership board working group. We have specific working group like expert group to move this forward. I think we have some really good progress in terms of everyone played a role to make contribution in terms of how to actually to reduce PAN number or to look at the long-term plan to decide what next step is going to be, whether we should actually when we have to close what school, what kind of criteria we're going to use. So there's agreement have been reached at that group. Again, I think we need to make connection when we have a group of school linked to that agenda. You're absolutely right. Let's not just about finance directly money issues, so also other long-term impact. I'd like to say that it's progressing very well. We also have a stakeholder group with community members, school governors, and also some interest parties who take part in another group called stakeholder group. Together with working group, our working on education partnership, they move that agenda, school place planning. At the moment, very much focused on primary school falling role. Progress has been made. They agreed what kind of criteria, what kind of threshold we want to look at when we decide action. Well, in the past, we did not agree to each other.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you. The forward planning program for the next meeting, which is in December, we've got the revenue monitoring report, DSG safety valve update, budget update. School forum membership, we'll be reviewing that over. Yes, I've got that down. Election for chair and vice chair, so if anyone is interested, please let Lisa know. Then the consultation, will that need to be come to this meeting before that goes out, or are you planning to have the consultation around the 0.5 transfer before that meeting?
Sorry,
This is the consultation that will go out to schools regarding the transfers to the high needs block.
Oh, yeah.
When is that planning to be going out to schools?
We plan to send it out, but normally the end of this term, we're working on that. The latest should be September, I think mid-September. We initially end to go out this end of this term. I don't think it's the right time. I don't know whether...
I don't think for schools personally, coming out in the next few weeks is an ideal time.
No.
Have to be September at least.
Yeah, I think for the... that's something we want to give school more time to respond this time. Possibly by the end of September.
I think the issue with it not coming out now is I've got to submit my budget by the 31st of August as an academy. So therefore, I need to know actually regarding whether that is going to be something we're putting in or taken out. So there's two sides to that. Yes, I don't want that information now with a week and a half to go, but equally, my budget is what's going to be agreed tomorrow night through my trustees, and whether it's in or out makes a big difference to my budget. So it is quite important we have that information.
From a purely financial lens, I mean, we've accounted on still getting the 0.5% block transfer. So, and you know, that's up for consultation and voting. But maybe as a word of advice, you know, if you're budgeting to be prudent, maybe include it as we have.
I think that's what we've done. It is in, but actually that then puts a big impact on there. But also, I think we need further clarity on that. Particularly, you know, I speak as a federation rep now. You know, it's been raised in federation that some people were not 5%, and actually it's really unclear. It's quite hard for people to work out, and their business managers to work out exactly what it was. So it might be useful for you actually to send out to all the schools that have exactly how much was taken from their budget and what percentage that was, because that's a question that was raised at Federation, and some had the answer and some didn't. So that might be useful, prudent in the next kind of week to send out to say this is what it was taken from your budget last year. This was 0.5%, because we know in Federation it's been discussed, some have been 0.5, some have been 0.7, some aren't clear. So that might be useful to send out, and then at least I could feed back that to Federation this afternoon. That would help, I think.
Yes, of course, we could send out that information, and you know, we discussed this actually at the schools task and finish group when we were doing the budget setting, that we need to start the process earlier compared to last year, and we also need to give quite a few options that are on the table, because we've flexed it between the primaries and secondaries, for example. So I think if we have a number of options that people can look at and assess, that would certainly be helpful. So yeah, that's something we're looking to do this year, start the process earlier, and with more options available.
So can I go back this afternoon, so we have, that you'll be able to send out by the end of this term what was taken last year as a percentage from each school, if there's sent it to each school, your percentage was 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, for clarity.
Till the end of the week.
Brilliant. I can feed that back to Federation this afternoon. They'll be pleased, won't they, Ian?
They'll love it.
And Dave, yeah, okay, thank you. It just helps the process next time if everybody knows and they've got the information up front, and then they can make a, because when we have to vote on it and bring back the vote to here, it's quite important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Can I come in, Chair? Yeah. It's just one, just an offer really. I know we planning communication with the Federation, with the primary school group as well. Probably not lined up. Do you want me to go back to ask Emma, Jonathan, if you need like even dialing in to join Federation meeting this afternoon anytime? They can stand by, or you want me to do it? You're okay.
For this afternoon, I think the agenda is pretty full, but I think it's knowing that information now, because it was a question that was asked, and none of us, there was a mixed view in the room, because some were like, well, you know, they'll vote maybe no, because if it is more than 0.5, then we need to know exactly how much it is. So so I think if we have that information, then people in the room can make an informed decision of their own school, and then obviously when we have to come back and vote here, we can then give an informed, pure Federation decision on that. So I think it'd be helpful, because I can't answer that to people when they ask me. So thank you.
Yeah, I only say that because I know it's on the top list communication with a secondary school federation or primary school head teachers association. So they will come around to it.
Has the consultation been finalised? Have you actually got it ready to go or not? Is it the same questions as last year, or is it changed? Is it finished? So is the consultation ready to go out? Okay. And then I think we also need to include an item around the banding with the high needs block, and the report back from the implementation group. I think that should be a standing agenda item for the next few meetings. So we include that. Is there anything else anyone would like to include? No. Lovely. For the next meeting in December, would people like face-to-face again, hybrid or online? Any preferences?
I found it really helpful to see colleagues face to face. And this is my personal observation. Also, I think possibly we can catch up on corridor conversation as well. Yeah, I found it useful. Anyway, other colleagues may have different view.
I think hybrid is the best option.
Yeah.
I think hybrid's the best option.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, thank you. And so we'll go for a hybrid meeting for December.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you want that going forward? It's just, if you think that's the option you want going forward, it's helpful for me to know, because room booking in here in the council is really problematic. I have to book rooms very far in advance. Shall I just do that?
I think so. Yeah. Yep. Because even the option, doesn't it? Yeah. Right. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely summer. If I don't see any of you over the coming weeks, thank you.